Hello to all my Rover subscribers and welcome to another Project Beatrix video. And it's been a couple of weeks since I last looked at it, maybe, possibly for you anyway. But today we are going to change the outer CV boot, something that I've been aware about for a long time, probably since I bought the car very early on and I gave it that first proper inspection. The outer CV boots are cracked. They are needing replacement and I have some replacements to hand. Now, it's first thing to note here, it is a first for me. Now, of all the cars I've owned, I have never changed outer CV boots. It's always the outer ones. Very rarely do the inner ones go. They're not under the kind of pressure that the outer ones are under. The reason that they usually crack is because obviously they're old, they're perished, they're more exposed to dirt because obviously they're closer to the wheel. And of course they're under pressure every time you go on a full steering lock because they are fully extended, and that just shreds the rubber eventually and they break. And it is supposedly an advisory on the MOT, even though I wasn't given an advisory. It depends on the judgment of the MOT tester. He obviously judged that it wasn't that bad. I don't think it looks horrendously bad to the point where they are going to go, but it's too much for me and it's a job that I need to tick off that list. Now obviously we have things long term, like, you know, we've got to get the windscreen sorted, etc. Train arm bushes may be looked at, may not be, because based on how I feel the car actually drives, I actually think it's not worth touching the bushes at the back at all, and there are bigger priorities to come forward. But this is definitely one of them, because the last thing you want is that black gungy CV grease going everywhere. And I spent a lot of time on paint. I do not want to be cleaning up the grease. It is nasty, and this is unfortunately probably the filthiest job you're going to do on a car. I've not done this job before and I'm going to see how filthy it is. So we're going to do this together. As such, you're going to be watching me as I tackle this job for the first time, and I'll see how good I can actually do it. Now there are a few things I'm going to show you now. Now before we start, this is the kit. It is from I think J&RC CV joint, something like that. And they actually specialise in drive shafts as well. Now the important thing about this is it is a universal stretch boot kit. I will have to cut this to size when it is in place. It is cone compatible and they have supplied a cone. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is a Flowmatic tool compatible, which is this is actually compatible with a Flowmatic tool, which I have. I bought this on eBay for about £50-ish, and I've got an air compressor, so why don't I use that instead of struggling with a cone? With a cone, you are going to have to line this with CV grease or silicone to get the boot to slip over this cone. Now, the only reason you use a cone is to get it over the hub, or use this to get it over the hub. Now, today we're going to be doing this in situ. I'm not removing the drive shaft, because if I remove the drive shaft, then the fluid is going to come out the gearbox. And I've just spent, you know, £43 on CVT fluid about 4 or 5 months ago. And I do not want to be spending any more on CVT fluid. It's staying in that box unless I deem that there is a reason to take it out for some reason. So we're going to do it in situ, like a garage would probably do it in situ. If you were doing the inner joint for whatever reason, then you have to take the drive shaft out. But the outer joints, the ones that usually go, you don't have to. And these tools allow you to do it in situ. You can take the actual outer joint off. It's only held on with a C-clip, a snap ring. You can just knock it off. But the chances are, if you knock it off, the drive shaft's going to come out the gearbox. And I've done that before, and I've made mistakes before when it comes to drive shafts. And I have pulled a drive shaft out of a gearbox when undoing suspension components, not on this car, on a Peugeot 207 many years ago, my ex-partner's car, and the gearbox oil just went all over the floor. It was a mistake, a learning mistake, and I'm not going to do that again. But this looks like a really nice kit. We've got the grease, we've got 2 stainless steel clips one for that side, the small one, and then the big one for this side. You're probably going to have to cut about this much off, I suspect, but we're going to measure it against the old one. But the key to this whole thing is by trying to keep it as clean as possible. Have some rags in there as much as possible. I have also got some extra graphite grease, the CV grease, in case, but rags are necessary. In fact, yeah, this is this was my Long Johns many years ago, and now it's been converted to rags. Cut some old clothes up, you know. At the end of the day, you've got some old clothes that you don't wear, cut them up, use them. And that's the other side. So ideally, that's what you want. Jack, axle stand, we're going to do one side at a time. You are going to need a few little bits and pieces. Now, what I would recommend is to release the CV, the drive shaft from the hub. You are going to have to punch it out. Well, I'm going to show you that in a bit, but you're going to need either one of these, or if you've got an air compressor and one of these, you can just punch it out. Right, I'm going to get the car on the axle stand. We know where we're jacking up. We've done it all before. I'll take the wheel off and I'll cut back. Now wheels come off, nice and easily. Well, the umbrella's come out again. Just shoved it against the car. Unfortunately, it's broken from its mounting, so I've had to sort of lean it against the door mirror and put a bit of cloth in between that and the panel just to stop it wrecking it. Anyway, right, now I'm under cover. We are faced with the hub. Now, there's a couple of things that we need to do first. The main one is the hub nut. Now, you can see the hub nut is held onto the actual stud, kind of with this groove that's been basically bashed in. So you have to bash this groove into the actual notch here, so that the hub nut basically can't come off. And what essentially I've been told to do is just whack a screwdriver in to bend it back out, so that I can actually get the hub nut back off. So I'm just going to get a hammer and actually hammer that back out. Just give it a gentle tap, and then it will sort of come out, and then bend it out a little bit more. That's it. Okay, so we can see now that it's been banged out and it's nice and circular. It's not like digging into this groove. So now we can remove this hub nut. You are going to require a 32mm. Now, if you have a manual car, you can just get an assistant to put it in gear, step up, foot on the brake, and then basically, well, I think it would be reverse gear, and then somebody else can just literally get the breaker bar on this nut and it should come off. But mine's an automatic, and you don't necessarily have that facility. That could be a bit tricky if you don't have one of these. Well, I'm going to use one of these. If you've got an impact gun, even half as powerful as that, it should get this hub nut off. I don't necessarily think they're going to be humongously tight being on the front either, but it's a 32mm. Let's go. Okay, squeaky bum time. Easy as you like. This gun is just amazing. There was hardly any spin on that shaft. Okay, put the hub nut aside for later. Now, what you've got to do now is, before we think about releasing the bottom ball joint here, okay, we have got to make sure that this is nice and loose. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either get one of these and keep smacking on it. Now, I suspect what I'm going to have to do is put this hub nut back on, because then it will allow me to actually hit this instead of hitting the actual thread. Or you can get a punch. Now, to be fair, actually, I can get away with actually without putting the nut back on, because there's actually quite a nice surface area, and the thread is actually not on the edge, it's actually here. There's actually no thread on the end piece. So basically you can get away with basically giving it a punch. So if I can do this on camera, see, that might be actually quite tough to actually get off. So I'm actually going to use air. done. Ooh, okay. That did not take much. Now, I had to put this hub nut back on just to protect this thread. Okay, because if you do not put this on, this will jump. It will literally jump everywhere. Okay, that's the one thing you'll find with these, it will literally jump. But that has now moved and we can leave the air tool now. That has done a huge job. You can see where I've made the marks. That's how lethal this is. You do not want that jumping and then basically damaging this thread. But now we have got movement. If I just go with those grooves and just hammer it by hand, there we go. That will not move anymore, but we can see that it's actually gone in through the splines. I mean, the splines will no doubt be very, very rusty, and I'm going to actually give it a really good clean and lubrication with GT85 before we put all this back together. But anyway, now we've actually loosened the drive shaft. I'm just going to look at that. There we go. It's nice and loose. Okay, that is precisely what you want. Now, that will not come out unless we actually take the hub off. Now, I've got to find a container now for this to go on. Some people rope it, so I'm going to see actually how this goes, because I'm doing this via trial and error here. But the next stage is to take this bottom ball joint out. So we've got to have a look at getting the split pin out for a start. Oh yes, wow. This reminds me of the good old days of the Rover P6. Rover still used split pins. Honest to God, I hate these things. Now, what you've got to try and do is get some pliers on this split pin and then pull it through. Once you can pull it through, you can take this bottom castle nut back off. I do hope the lighting is okay. I do apologise for the lighting under here. But yeah, what you need to do is just pull using nose pliers. Hopefully get it nice and straight. I've just pulled it nice and straight on this side. So hopefully I'll be able to pull from this side. Right, come on you jackass. Oh, it's gonna take a lot to get this out. Oh, it's very rusty. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yay! Out. Good. Now, I will replace this with another split pin. I am going to put this in my parts tray and I'm going to try and find one exactly the right size. I've got quite a few. A bit from my P6 days. Thank you, P6. Right, now this castle nut here is 19mm. What I'd recommend, I'm not using impact tools, I'm just going to use a breaker to get this off. So bear with a second. Trying to get in position and might need some persuasion. It's moved. Lovely. Persuasion. Yeah. Let's try again just to make sure it's on the joint. Go very, very slowly because this feels tight as hell and you do not want doing anything. Right, what I'm going to do, that feels really tight. Penetrating fluid is required. Potentially, I should have done this before. You are going to need plus gas. Okay, so we're just going to put some plus gas all on there. Okay, let's just get that nice and supple. And plus gas works straight away. That's a lot better. There we go. I'm sorry if this is a bit shiny. You know, the light from my LED torch is reflecting quite badly off the socket. Nice and chromy. I could have used my impact tool, but I just didn't want to risk. See, this is where using impact tools is not entirely appropriate for the job. Doing it by hand and a breaker bar gets you a long way. and most people don't have access to a £300 impact gun, I gather. So I have to kind of show you the way that most of you guys would do it. I just cheat half the time. I mean, goodness me, the days of me doing everything by hand are long gone. I've learnt my trade very nicely by doing everything by hand. Now that's, look at that, that's loose. Just wanted to make sure, yeah, it's still tight enough. Right. Oh, come on, get off the ratchet. Right, this is where you need these. Okay, just use the ratchet to do the rest of the job. Lovely, lovely, lovely. In fact, it's so slippy under here. There we go. Off it comes. Lovely. Oh my God. There's actually a piece of, there's still a piece of the actual old split pin in there. Anyway, that looks pretty manky. I've got to give that a bit of a clean before I put that back on, like everything else. But anyway, good, good. We're getting somewhere. Now, just give this a bit of a clean up. Now, this is where we have to break the ball joint. Now, I think if I just bring this over here, try and level it up a little bit. Now, it's actually held together pretty well. There's still some surface corrosion coming in. But anyway, what we have here is the ball joint, okay, underneath. We have got to get this taper broken. Now, some people would put a scaffold tube through here, which actually doesn't look possible because the gap between the drive shaft and the arm is actually not enough. We're going to do it the proper way and use a ball joint splitter. Now this could be quite interesting, so bear with. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm going to do. Now I'm just going to move over here. There we go, lovely. I've actually put the ball joint splitter on this side because actually I don't want to be faffing around with the caliper. Well, I've actually discovered I've just knocked this splitter all the way in. Now that is in on that joint now. There is a very little gap between the bottom of the trap rod end and the actual splitter itself, but if I just use a spanner initially, it should come down enough and then break the taper. So just bear with, I'm going to get my 19mm spanner. Oh, in fact, it's not 19, I forgot, it's actually 22. So lucky I've got this open-ended spanner, which I rarely use, but when I need to use it, I need to use it. So let's do it the old-fashioned way. Now, remember with ball joints, I make no excuses for the fact that this camera might get hit, because when ball joints pop, this tool goes flying. Anybody who's used a ball joint splitter tool will know this. So I'm just going to keep my face well and truly away here. So I can feel that already getting tight. The key is to make sure that this is sitting nicely, and it is. Some pressure, that is, it's not, try not to release. Ah, done. You never do this with an impact gun because that will lead to injuries. You must always, always do this. There we go. That is now off. Yeah, that's off. That's off. Right, take the nut off. We have now braked the taper. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's come off. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Right, now that's stage one. I've got my box ready. But what we've got to do next is take this top ball joint off. This will get enough movement to push this sideways. So basically, again, take the split pin out, take the cutter nut off, and we'll break the joint. Oh, maybe I should just be able to pull this. Ah, it's come out. Lovely. Well, that was easy. Oh, that's it. Done. Just got to be really, really careful to not cause any excessive damage. Can't actually get my ratchet on because this cross member is actually stopping me, but it's so loose now it's not causing me a problem. Ow! Off it goes, and that boot looks really good. Okay, right now, hello, I've got control. Now this is where we need to be really, really careful. I'm just going to bring you away from here and show you the whole thing. Okay, now I've got a lot of control over this, but now what we're going to do is just take this ABS wire straight out, because I do not want that getting damaged. So we just take it out as best as we can without actually damaging the thing. Right, so that ABS wire is now free. Now we have got the entire hub in our hands. Now we have to be wary about the brake hose. We have to be wary about a few things. I'm just going to bring this a bit closer. So I've literally put, I'm just going to angle you down. So I've put that box there, and we're just going to angle this down so I can actually direct this. Now remember, we've got the drive shaft that's free as well. So let's just have a really good crack at seeing what we could do with this. This is where it gets a bit funny. Remember, I'm learning as well. So if I just... right. Okay, we're off. Now, what I need to do is push it through, push the drive shaft through. There we go. Out, out. Go, 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 go. It's a two-handed job, this. And out. There we go. Right. Move that aside. This brake hose is under pressure, so just be wary about that. There we go. Put the box here. Right. Okay. That took some manoeuvring here. Now, we've now got access to the drive shaft itself, and actually, I am really surprised. Look at those splines. There's no sign of any rust. It's clean in there as well. If this was a Ford, that would be absolutely rusted to hell. That's amazing. But we can see the true extent of the problem, really. This is not ideal. In fact, I just need to bring the light in so you can see. I mean, that is not good. That's not good. Okay, so now we've got access to the drive shaft. Just going to pop this here. Now remember, the brake hose is sort of leaning against it a little bit. I've just got to be very, very wary about this brake hose. In fact, I may want to release the clamp there, but actually things are sitting quite nicely. I'm actually happy with how everything is at the moment, so just bear with as it is. Now, what we've got to do now is the unforgivable task of cutting this thing off. That is going to be an interesting spectacle, but we will have a go. I may go and just do some rust killing on this bit and stone chipping while we're at it, but the priority is getting that sorted.